Hi guys, I just wanted to let you know that I've recently started a Patreon account. Here you'll be able to see every historic site I travel to, my research which goes into my videos, and medieval armour that I make during my apprenticeship as an armourer. There is no obligation, I've only put one tier on my page which is just $5 to help support the channel. Click the link on screen or in the video description, and cheers! In the summer of 2021, I found myself exploring the South English coast. My adventure led me to visit many fascinating English historic sites spanning thousands of years of our rich history. I visited castles, ancient hill forts, medieval churches within Bronze Age henges, and many more. During my travels, I stumbled upon one place in particular which caught my eye. Known not only for its classic English beauty, but its particularly intriguing ruins within the town. Christchurch is a picture-perfect example of a classic English postcard seaside town, a town known for fishing, boat building, and smuggling. Christchurch is steeped in history with no end of fantastical tales and local legends. So I grabbed my backpack and I ventured down to this town, located on the Dorset coast. My goal was to visit the 3 surviving main medieval sites, which, conveniently, are all situated right next to each other. The main attraction, at least for me, are the ruins of a Norman domestic dwelling. The building is known as Constable's Hall and dated to the late 12th century. This is one of only 2 surviving Norman domestic houses in England, with the other being the confusingly named Weeting Castle near Thetford, Norfolk. Weeting Castle isn't actually a castle, it's a grand Norman dwelling. Original Norman houses are considerably rare due to the likelihood that they would avoid any modernisation, extensions or adaptations to keep up with the current fashion trends throughout time. What's even rarer is this 12th century Norman house features an original chimney and an original Norman garderobe tower. A garderobe is an old-fashioned name for toilets, and what's interesting about the garderobes of Constable's Hall here in Christchurch is that these toilets were technically flushable, as they were built over the estuary of the River Avon, which is tidal, so naturally flushes any deposits away twice a day without fail. Christchurch location is ideal for a settlement as it is well drained, has both the River Avon and the River Stour either side of the land, and of course as a coastal town it has full access to the sea. As early as the 7th century, we know of a fortified settlement here at Christchurch, since during an archaeological dig in the 1970s, a portion of Anglo-Saxon wall was discovered which dated to around 650 AD. Other excavations revealed the graves of 34 Saxon warriors, with each grave containing rare early examples of Saxon metalwork such as swords and shield bosses. Further research confirmed that a Saxon jute settlement stood here. Importantly, we must remember that the Saxons were only one of 3 main settlers who sailed to the British Isles from mainland Europe. They were accompanied by the Angles and the Jutes, from the areas around northern Germany and Denmark. The Saxon roots here at Christchurch is evident in the town's first official name, Twynham or Tyneham, which, when translated in its most basic form, means a town situated between 2 rivers. The name Twynham or Tyneham is traceable in a Domesday book, and was revered as an important port town, not to be confused with the nearby village of Tyneham, which I have featured in another video. King John once visited and most likely stayed in the Constable's Hall, which was the most grand and roomy building within the Castle Bailey. Speaking of the Castle Bailey, just across the park from Constable's Hall stands the considerable Christchurch Castle. Although not much is left of the castle today, we know that its fortifications were once vast and well thought out. A series of canals were cut into the River Avon, filling the moat around the castle's bailey, coupled with some stone bridges that were met with gatehouses and drawbridges. Since 2 sides of the town were already protected by rivers, and the third side was protected by the sea, Christchurch was considered an easy settlement to protect, only needing to focus fortifications on one side of the town. After changing hands multiple times throughout its Norman history, the castle found itself in possession of Baldwin, a feudal baron from nearby Plympton. Baldwin was one of the first barons to side with Empress Matilda at the beginning of the anarchy, a subject which, again, I have discussed in another video. After this civil war, Baldwin embarked on the Second Crusade over in the Holy Lands, where word had spread that he had died. Despite this rumour not being true, this caused one of King Stephen's former commanders, Walter de Pinkney, to seize the castle of Christchurch, and unfortunately used his new powers to commit several atrocities to the local population. Although unclear what these atrocities were exactly, the townsfolk of Christchurch evidently weren't standing for this punishment anymore, and ambushed Pinkney in the nearby Priory churchyard and murdered him. The townspeople then proceeded to besiege the castle, at this time a wooden motte bailey with a palisade wall, and successfully took the castle back in time for Baldwin's return from the Holy Lands. It is assumed that these events persuaded Baldwin to upgrade the castle to the stone keep we see today. The castle and town of Christchurch lived in relative harmony through the centuries that followed, but the castle unfortunately saw its demise as a result of the English Civil War, where royalist forces attempted to besiege the parliamentarian-held castle for 3 days unsuccessfully. After the Civil War had met its conclusion, the parliamentarian forces regarded the well-fortified castle here at Christchurch as a risk if the royalist forces were ever able to reclaim it. And with this they decided to tear it down to prevent this possibility from ever occurring. The gatehouse was demolished in 1744, and the moat was eventually filled in and built upon. Across the way from the castle is the unmissable Priory Church. There had been a Saxon chapel on this site since at least the 8th century, but when the Normans arrived and expanded Twynham, they built a larger church on the site of a pre-existing chapel. There is an old legend which suggests that the church was supposed to be built elsewhere. However, when the workers arrived one morning, all the building materials had magically moved here where the Saxon chapel was, so the priory was constructed on this site instead. Inside the church you can still see the fabled miraculous beam, which is said to have also magically expanded by itself to fit perfectly in the nave roof. These old medieval folk tales led the church to be a popular attraction for pilgrims all over the world, and it is said that the town renamed itself Christchurch because of this. Under the reign of King Edward I, the courtyard between the north porch and the transept was used for archery practice, obligatory for all townsmen of Christchurch, in the hopes to recruit more archers for the various wars against Wales, Scotland and France. This remained a requirement in Christchurch, and indeed in countless other towns and villages all across England, right up until the 16th century. The priory survived until the 28th of November 1539, when the prior John Draper was forced to surrender the church under the Dissolution of the Monasteries Act under the reign of King Henry VIII. Thankfully, the church itself was saved from demolition, and continued to function as the town's parish church instead. Due to this decision, we can continue to admire the beautiful Romanesque blind arcading, a popular design during the Norman period, as well as other multiple incredible examples of monastic architecture ranging from the 12th to 16th centuries. I hope you've enjoyed this video of Christchurch, and feel free to check out my other videos on similar subjects. But for now, thanks for watching.